Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Martin, your 2020 CBOR president. Welcome to the Columbia Board of Realtors' first ever virtual annual meeting. Even if we can't get together in person yet, we've got a great program planned for you today. I think it's safe to say this year has brought challenges to all of us, but our resiliency and ingenuity have shown through, keeping the real estate market in Columbia not only functioning well, but vibrant. I want to thank all of you who have worked so hard this year, not only to keep real estate moving forward, but also showing our community that we have a true realtor spirit and what it's all about. Supporting local businesses, neighbors, families, and friends through such a difficult year. Before we begin the program today, I'd like to take a moment to observe Pam Soche, your CBOR 2020 immediate past president, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move on, though, to our next item. We're lucky enough here to have Brianna Lennon with us this morning. Hopefully we won't have any other technical issues for her, but we'll just roll with the punches today. So Brianna is the Boone County Clerk for us. She has served since December 2018 and is in the middle of her 4-year term. Brianna is a graduate of Truman State University and holds a master's in public policy and law, both from the University of Missouri. Brianna lives in Columbia with her husband, Scott, and 2 children, Ryan and Isabel. She is active in the local community and has served on the City of Columbia New Century Fund Board, the Greenbelt Land Trust of Mid-Missouri, and MU's Women's and Children's Patient and Family Advisory Council. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our County Clerk, Brianna Lennon.
Hi, hopefully everybody can hear me. I just wanted to thank you all for allowing me to speak to you for a moment this morning. I wanted to remind everyone that the election is coming up. It's less than 50 days away at this point, and we are, as always, but especially this year, looking to recruit poll workers and election judges to work at our 76 polling locations. And this year we also have an additional central polling location at Mizzou Arena. So if you have ever wanted to do anything volunteer oriented regarding elections and you want to do it at Mizzou Arena, now is the time to sign up to be a poll worker. We do require everyone, state law requires everyone to choose a political party when they do sign up. And as I think historically has been in the past, we generally have a good number of people that are signing up, but the ratio of political parties is somewhat off. And so if you are interested in signing up and you are you don't mind picking a political party, Republican Party is generally the one that we have a lot of trouble getting enough people at, because we're also required to have equal numbers of parties at the polls. So if you're interested, go to our website. It's vote.boonmo.org, and you can sign up to be a poll worker. Also, yesterday was National Voter Registration Day, so I just wanted to remind everyone that it's important to check your voter registration record. You can do that on our website. If you have moved, or if you are talking to your clients and they're buying a house, remind them to check their voter registration. Make sure that they are updating their address. Changing your address with the post office does not update your voter record. So it's important to make sure that you're keeping that on file with us. And that's how we're going to determine what ballot you're going to vote and what polling place you're going to be assigned to. So if you want to have a smooth experience on election day, it's important to have your voter record up to date. The deadline, if you're new to Boone County or one of your clients is new to Boone County or has crossed county lines, is October 7th. So you can register online on the Secretary of State's website or on our website and get that taken care of and be ready to vote in November.
All right. Thank you, Brianna. We appreciate you being here today. And as everybody knows, real estate is so influenced by legislation. So everybody get out there and vote. Help facilitate these votes by working at your polling place if you have time and the will to do so. And we've got an interesting one coming up. So next up, we would like to thank our sponsors. So, we can't do anything without all of our affiliates and our sponsors, but there's two sponsors that step up huge for us every year. We have Boone Central Title and Flat Branch Home Loans. They're both sponsoring today's event. CBOR just wants to let you know that we appreciate the support that we get every year from you all. And the sponsors actually have created a video for us. So we're going to go down the video road again. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So they both produce videos that we would like to share for you now.
Good morning, friends. We are so excited to be a part of this year's annual meeting. Each year we try to think of something fun and witty, but this year's different. It's a time of difficulty for so many. It's a time of change, some good, some bad. This pandemic has forced us all to think outside of the box. The great thing about it is we're all in this together. And I have a few loan officers that wanted to share a few words of appreciation for all the hard work you do, even in these trying times.
Hi, CBOR. Hi, CBOR. We just wanted to hop on and thank you guys so much for all of your support and all of your hard work this year. We know that 2020 has not been an easy year, but we thank you for everything that you've done to help our business keep moving forward.
Yep, thank you for your partnership and your guys' dedication out there showing and putting your all families and health at risk. We really appreciate it.
Hey, realtors, we appreciate you. You are on the front lines showing homes, and we could not do our jobs without you. You are essential to us and our business, and we just want to say thank you.
I just want to say thanks to each and every one of our realtor partners out there. Me and my team just so greatly appreciate each of you. You guys just really are a huge part of our success, and we couldn't do what we do without you. So I just wanted to say thank you. And maybe one day we'll get to go to the closing table together and shake hands again. So anyway, thank you.
We are so thankful to call each and every one of you our friends. We are so blessed to be in an industry that not only didn't it die, but it's thriving. So I want to leave you with one thought. I know how much each and every one of you love our community we live in. You make it what it is. So I challenge you, if you see a need in the community, be that action taker that continues to make the difference. You know about our Giving Branch. I've talked about it many years in the past. When the pandemic hit, we created a special task force, if you will, for those that are directly impacted by COVID, separate from the normal Giving Branch donations. If you know of anyone that needs help, please direct them to the Giving Branch at foundation.fbhl.com. We want to help. Thank you again for everything you do. We love you, and we can't wait for the happy hours to come. Have a great rest of 2020. Bye-bye, guys.
Sing on.
This is Edna, darling, and reporting live from Boone Central, Thailand, and we are here with Mr. and Mrs. Protectable. So, Mr. Protectable, do you have a secret identity?
Well, of course. Every superhero has a secret identity. I don't know a single one who doesn't. Who wants the pressure of being a Protectable every time?
Of course I have a secret identity. Can you see me in this at a closing table? Come on, who wants to go to a closing as Mrs. Protectable? You know what I mean?
Well, I do, darling, but let's get back to business. What do you do, darling, at Boone Central Title?
Well, it is a 3-step Protectable process.
First step, research.
Our research department checks ownerships and liens that need to be corrected or paid to make sure the new buyer can have their property rights protected.
I never look back, darling. It distracts from the now.
Next is closing.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Seller.
Hi, I'm Miss Closer.
I'm Miss Buyer.
Nice to meet you, Buyer.
I just got back from Vegas and I'm not sure what my last name is.
I bought a boat with my down payment.
Oh.
Don't panic. Brace yourselves. I got this.
When in doubt, bulletproof it.
The last step is policy.
An owner's title policy will protect title to your property against many possible title problems. Your policy is your protective shield for your Missouri property rights.
And if anything ever goes wrong, darling, the Protectables use their powers. They're the greatest good you are ever going to get.
We're saving the world, one policy at a time.
So next up, we have, and are lucky to have, Dr. Jessica Lautz. Jessica is the Vice President of Demographics and Behavioral Insight for NAR. The core of her research focuses on analyzing trends for both NAR members and housing consumers. Through management of surveys, focus groups, and data analysis, she presents new and innovative ways to showcase results. Jessica discusses research findings in major media outlets and international presentations. Jessica received her doctorate of real estate from Nottingham Trent University in the UK. She also has a master's in public policy from American University and undergraduate degrees in political science and law from Central Washington University. She knows what she's talking about. We were so excited to get Jessica to speak to our association. We actually booked her at the beginning of the year and were worried once all these travels got halted that we'd have to wait a whole nother year to get her great insights. But luckily, she has been so gracious to work with us on this digital platform, and we are so happy to have her with us today. Feel free to submit questions throughout her presentation in the chat. Brian is going to be monitoring that, and so we will have a brief Q&A at the end of her presentation. So with that, we'll get the screen switched over and welcome Jessica Lautz.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly wish I was there in person with you guys doing this virtual platform. I try my best, but I do not think that I am a pro at it in any way. And honestly, I just miss the energy and having the room. So I think we're all in a pressure cooker situation, all of America truly. And whatever your situation is right now with COVID, with the election, with social justice issues, we are truly in a pressure cooker. I don't think that any of us really knew what was going to happen when we signed up for 2020, and here we are. As we move forward, I think there's a lot of changes that people are saying, I have got to make these changes for myself, for my family, and make this either a better living situation, remodel the home that I'm in, or just completely change the home. And so I think that's truly what we're seeing. So as we look at the housing landscape that we're seeing today, what we actually saw yesterday was truly amazing. Real estate has bounced back. We have seen a very, very strong recovery in the real estate sector. Not all sectors right now are performing the same way. Of course, we know that restaurants not operating on full capacity in many areas of the country, either at partial capacity, only outdoor seating. And we think about movie theaters really being truly shut down and not feeling comfortable going into those types of places. But for real estate, there's a strong recovery. And I'm going to show you some reasons behind that, some consumer attitudes that we are doing waves of research on. And we have 11 waves that we have done through COVID. And I actually was sent the latest results this morning. So I threw them in even while logged on. So you guys are truly seeing the latest information. When we look at the national statistics, what we see is there's 102 months of year-over-year home price growth. And truly what that means is that the demand is there. People have come back into the market. They took a pause in the spring. They said, I want to put my transaction on hold, but they are back as a force. And this is something that you would not see traditionally this time of year, post school starting, after Labor Day, for home sales to be as strong as they are. We had 2 months of year-over-year home sales gain that were more than 20%. Yesterday, we hit the 6 million level, and that is not something that we've seen in 14 years. The typical list to contract time is 22 days. It is a very short period of time. These are record lows that we have seen. We track this actually on a daily basis. We report it on a weekly basis in our Thursday weekly monitor. We saw it as low as 16 days a couple of weeks ago. That is extremely low. Truly record-breaking numbers here. 3 and 5 members are actually saying that the market is hotter than it would normally be this time of year. So truly, again, seeing these record levels. When we look at Columbia, Missouri, truly we're seeing the same sorts of gains here, actually even more in year-over-year home sales gains. Just last month, the home price gains continuing to be incredibly strong, double digits in recent months, 8% just in August. And again, looking at a very short time on market, 29 days, but the month supply is very low at less than 1.5. Some of the things that we are tracking, and we're putting this information out again on Thursdays, is that we are looking at cities that have very strong growth right now. There's a big migration that is happening out of big cities. So New York, Boston, even the DC area. And people are very much attracted to still living in city centers, but not necessarily in big cities. So places like Columbia obviously will be very attractive to a lot of people to say, I want a quieter city. I want someplace like St. Louis, like Kansas City, that's going to be different than these big metropolitan areas, but still give me the amazing dynamic nature of city centers and still give me the amenities that I can find in city centers. So there is an attraction to finding these different types of cities. And I'll go on to some of the reasons why we're seeing this. But of course, remote work is a big factor here as we think about not having to be wedded to where our workplaces are, thinking about working at home much more often, even post-pandemic. Looking at the data that we're seeing on this weekly basis, again, looking at this days on market, we have seen this go back up to 22 days in this yellow bar. Again, hitting almost 15 days on market, truly the lowest that we have recorded in our data set. The blue line, I think, is really interesting here. This is the time to close. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing delays in the closing process, looking at having to have wet signatures, having to meet people in person. And then quickly the real estate market changed, adapted, pivoted much quicker than many industries did. And the time to close then went down. We're about the normal pace right now, about where we were last year when we look at the time to close. So very, very encouraging data here that we're getting back. The other thing that we're seeing is that this demand that we are seeing a very big, strong rebound in, the leading indicators are saying that this is going to continue. Interest rates are low. They're at historic lows. We have said this for years now. It's a very boring statement to say interest rates are at historic lows, but they truly are. And we have never seen these types of interest rates in our lifetime. And when we look at this, there's a lot of people who jumped in early and said, I want to refi. But now we know that those refis have kind of got to a slowdown point at this point. We know that those who wanted to refi, they did. They did so early in spring, and lenders really had a backlog of refis who were really interested in that. Right now, at this point, what we're seeing is that these are people who are actually having purchase applications, who are talking to lenders at this point. Refis have slowed, and the reason why is they could have fees in their local areas. It might not just be prudent. They might be planning on moving. So it might not be a good idea for them to take advantage of that. So the purchase applications are working through lenders. If this is a leading indicator of what's to come, we can see that, again, the year over year mortgage purchase applications are still 25% higher than they were a year ago. So again, a lot of people, a lot of pent up demand in that pipeline. The one thing though, of course, is that inventory is just not there. Looking at your guys' market and seeing that month supply at 1.5 months, we need people to really feel encouraged to bring their home onto the market, that this is a safe transaction to do, and that they can find a place once they're ready to actually purchase a place as well. All right, so let's look at some consumer data. And this is the data that I added into the PowerPoint this morning. So they're not super pretty charts, but I wanted to make sure that you guys do have the latest and greatest information. What we are seeing based on consumer data, we are asking consumers who are active in the real estate market, are you feeling okay attending an open house that's listed for sale? What we see here is the vast majority, 59%, are saying, yeah, I'm ready to go. And 15% are actually saying, I'm active in this. I am doing this, perhaps with my agent or shopping on my own. I feel okay with that. There's a small sector of people who are saying, I need assurance, either from my local government, national authorities, medical authorities, saying that this is an okay activity. I can be safe in an open house. There is a share of people who are saying, I need a medical breakthrough to feel okay going to open houses. Now, I know there's a lot of brokerages, a lot of states and locals who have actually said, let's not do open houses right now. Let's really just focus on listing presentations. So let me show you that question as well. We asked consumers, are you going to feel okay touring a home outside of an open house? So you individually going into the home with your family, with your agent, are you okay with that? You can see here, there's a very strong majority, 67% are saying, I am absolutely ready to go. 12% are already doing this activity. There's a much smaller share here who are saying, I need a medical breakthrough or I need assurance to do this activity. So people are feeling much more confident. And again, when we think about the different industries that are out there, we think about movies or sporting events, people not really feeling comfortable with that on a large scale right now. But people are feeling comfortable doing a real estate transaction. And again, that really speaks to the industry and how quickly the industry changed, adapted to really look at safety protocols. The whole idea of masks and gloves and shoe covers, those were early adoptions in the real estate industry, much more early than what the state and local governments were actually saying that you should adopt these behaviors. The real estate industry actually said, let's just do it. Let's make sure that people feel safe. And we can go all the way back to our March data when we started collecting information on this from members, and they were already adopting those practices. So I think very, very impressive. So continuing to look at this consumer behavior, we wanted to see the urgency that consumers are feeling right now. And we're seeing that a pretty strong share are actually saying they're very ready to buy sooner rather than later. They are ready to make that transaction happen. And we asked them some follow-up questions about why they're feeling that urgency, because I think that's really important to understand that right now. And what we found is that more than half are concerned about their physical health. So again, thinking about moving out of these dense city centers, this overcrowding situation, and into perhaps a smaller city center, a small town, a rural area is very, very attractive to people right now. And I'll show you some data points on that too that I think are fascinating. Now, I want to break down this chart because I do think it's interesting. 20% are concerned about social unrest, and so they're making their move based on that. 14% are saying they need to separate from the people they're living with. I think that's fascinating. I get it. You're with people for a long period of time, for many weeks, many months at this point, close to 200 days for my family, at least. So I kind of get it. And then I'm tired of living where I've been living. I'm not saying that I want to separate from a family. I love my family, but I do get it. And then just tired of the four walls that you're staring at. All right. So the other data point that I threw in here this morning that I think is really, really interesting and really speaks to tons of markets that are out there is that a quarter of people are actually considering buying a second home right now. They have more funds. We asked a lot of lead up questions towards this. So you're taking away your gas money and your entertainment funds, things that you used to do on the weekend. And now where are you thinking about putting your money? And a lot of people are actually saying, I'm thinking about a second home. Can't take a vacation right now for a lot of people to fly internationally, at least. And the locations are limited. People are not feeling as comfortable jumping on a cruise. You can't even take one, or jumping on a flight. So thinking about buying a second home where you can go and spend some of your time instead of looking at your four walls around you. Very attractive to some people right now. And I think that this is a higher share than what we would have seen a year ago. That being said, we don't have historical data on this because we really had no reason to really ask this question consistently of consumers. All right. So we have been taking member surveys as well. I mentioned that we were seeing changes in the data back in March. We've been consistently asking members essentially their preferences, their changes in business practices, their concerns right now. But I want to show you how this relates to the consumer. What we're finding from our members is that a lot of people are doing their homework online. They're essentially fast forwarding their urgency there to purchase a home, and members are truly seeing it. In the past, what we had seen is that, of course, buyers were looking online, they're sharing that with mom and dad, they're sharing that with their family, and then they're texting their agent saying, let's go set up a tour, let's view this on the weekend, whatever they're doing with their agent. What we're seeing now is a lot of people are looking at those virtual tours, they're looking at virtual online listings, they're looking at virtual open houses, and they're really seeing that house in person. They're limiting and being very strategic about the number of homes that they see, especially if those homes are available in their price point. And I guess that's the key there, is that in some areas, it could be very difficult. You may be outbid, you may have to see more homes, but what we're seeing right now is that people are limiting and being strategic and looking at only 3 homes in person before they're putting a contract down. That's significantly lower than what we have seen in the past. If we look at 2018 data, what we saw is that people looked at about a dozen homes before they put a contract down. Last year, it shrunk to 9 with limited inventory, and now just 3. And that's with limited inventory. So you may not see that many homes in your price point, but truly 3 homes and putting a contract down, I think you guys would have laughed me out of the room if I had said that last year, because that is such a low number. It's like an HGTV dream where you're going to move in on Monday, renovate the home, everything's going to be clean and everything's going to be working. Truly, that's really not how the business works. We know that people take their time, they look at homes and their price point, they evaluate, they work with their agent to do that. So really fast forwarding that transaction. The other thing that we are seeing here is that sellers are prepared. When they are ready to sell, they are working with their agent beforehand to DIY, take their time, get their home ready for the market, so that really when they feel comfortable, they can just flip that switch and they are ready to go. All right. So the other thing that we're seeing from members is that buyers are changing their space, their place, what they want in their home. I know you guys know this because you guys work with buyers and you see this, but there really is a transition. And we have seen this in the data that at least one home feature is changing for buyers. And they're saying that they want this victory garden, this yard where they can grow their own fruits and vegetables, a bigger kitchen where perhaps they can bake with their sourdough starter, but just more personal space within their home. The home office, of course, top of the list for so many people. And now especially looking at children's essentially home offices so that you can have a space in your home for a lot of kids who are going virtual right now. When we know that more than 70% of students right now are virtually learning. The other thing that we're seeing is that there is, again, that shift outside of these dense city centers into suburbs, small towns. A quarter of agents are actually saying they're working with a buyer who was originally looking at a different location and now has shifted because of COVID-19. The other thing that we're seeing is this change away from multifamily homes into a preference towards single family homes. These have always been desires. They were desires last year for more personal space, for more affordable areas. But I think this has really just accelerated this trend. It's more pronounced now than what we have seen in the past. All right, so the other big media thing that's going on right now, and we're seeing a lot of it, is the social unrest. And so I want to draw this connection and this thread here between what we're seeing with these protests and also what's happening in housing and how there is this connection here. And I think it's really interesting when we look at this data that there truly is a connection, but also this data is rough to see. I will say that. All right, so let's jump in. What we see right now is when we look at the US homeownership rate by race, the yellow line is the white Caucasian, non-Hispanic homeownership rate. It's 73% in the US. What we see for the African-American Black homeownership rate, and it is 42%. That is an extremely large gap. And that gap is actually wider now than in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act started, when it was legal to discriminate based on race in housing. There's a lot of reasons behind this. The chart only goes back to 1994. There's a lot of systemic reasons behind this, but I do think it's important to note where we are right now. When we look at this data, what we see is that there was a push there. And when we look back at that time frame, we know it's the boom years. There's a lot of people who are put into loan products that they may have qualified for conventional loan products, and unfortunately, they were targeted for faulty subprime loan products. What we also see is that there is a drop-off, and that drop-off really is attributed to double the foreclosure rate and short sale rate for African Americans and for Hispanic Americans than white Caucasians. So looking at that fall off, we can see that that gap has widened and that the yellow line up there is showing a rising white Caucasian homeownership rate in comparison to a leveling off, unfortunately, of the Black homeownership rate. So I want to show you another chart here that looks at the data that we have and really looks at successful home buyers. The denial rate for Black African American home buyers is actually double what it is. It's nearly 3 times what it is for white Caucasians. 13% of successful home buyers, so those who eventually did find a lender who would actually accept their application for a mortgage, were actually denied from a loan product. I think this is really important to underscore here, because these are people who said, no, I think I will qualify. I will go and apply for another lender who may give me a loan product. But knowing the denial rate is that high just for successful home buyers, we know that there's a lot of Americans who are left behind here who could qualify, likely, perhaps through another lender. Excuse me. The other thing that we're seeing here is that we know that homeownership is not only a place where we are living 24/7 of our life right now. We are working, we're cooking, we're using our homes as schools and restaurants, growing our own food, and really spending all of our entertainment time here as well. But we also know that is the number one way that Americans earn their net worth, earn their wealth in America. And so what we see here is when we look at the net worth of families by race, you can see that the white non-Hispanic net worth is $171,000 in comparison to the Black net worth of not even $18,000. A lot of that has to do with housing. That is an extremely large gap. And that's a gap that, again, has widened over time as we've seen that home values have increased, that equity in home has increased. And unfortunately, what we see is that that gap has increased over time as well. The other thing that I want to point out from this chart is that this is from the Federal Reserve Board, the US Federal Reserve Board. You will note on this chart that there is no Asian category. This is not a mistake that I made. In fact, I went back to the data set and I said, no way, there has to be an Asian category here. There's not, because they actually lump in the US Federal Reserve, and the latest data is 2016, into the other category. That's just unfortunate on its face that we can't even track the net worth of Asian families in America. All right, so I'm gonna move on to topics. I'm gonna move it on to a little lighter, but I do think it's important when we do see the social unrest that's happening in America and know that there is a thread here that we can bring to homeownership, and that we all can try and do our own part to really narrow this gap in not only the family wealth, but also the homeownership gap. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about some demographic shifts. We're already seeing them. They're already extremely pronounced. I think it's fascinating what we're seeing right now. A little scary, but let's talk about it. For those who are 19 to 29 years old, 52% of them now are living at home with mom and dad. That is the highest share. More than half of 19 to 29-year-olds are living at home. That is the highest share that we have seen since the Great Depression. That is, we call them the avocado toast generation. We say that they're all mooching off their parents. Well, unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is that there's an enormous shift towards multi-generational living, an enormous shift among young adults living at home. Now, some of these may be young professionals who were working in city centers, living in metro areas, renting a condo, renting an apartment, and said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And what's the point? I'm not going to work anyway. Let me move home to a fully stocked pantry and freezer and move home with mom and dad. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing a lot of young adults who would traditionally be in dorm rooms right now or apartments who aren't. They're doing virtual college learning, or they're taking a gap year or something along those lines. And so they are moving home. When we look at last year's data, what we see is that 1 in 6 Gen Xers and younger boomers actually did purchase a multi-generational home, something that was attractive for them to take care of aging parents, take care of aging adult children, have them all in this large single family home. We're seeing a lot of this right now. There's a lot of people who are also very much missing their adult aging relatives and are saying, you know, I want this aging relative with me instead of in a senior center, senior living facility where they could be at risk for COVID. And I want them with me. I'll figure it out. I'll remodel my home to really make this work. The other thing that we are hearing a lot of right now is that there could be this potential baby boom, that we're going to have this kindergarten class with a lot of little girls named Pandemica. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see it. And I'm very, very wary of this potential baby boom that could be coming out of this. What we're seeing right now is a massive baby bust in this country. We have more than 35 years of a low birth rate in this country, where people cannot afford to have a second child, add one child into their family because of daycare costs, $2,000 to $3,000 a month for a child to go to daycare. Very, very expensive for families to be able to swing that. So what we have been seeing is that people are just choosing not to have children in the way that they used to in the past. This chart is showing the share of children under the age of 18 for home buyers. And we've seen that it's dropped from nearly 60% to just 35% from 1985 to 2019 for those who do have children in their home. That is a very interesting dynamic. It'll be very interesting if we do see in a few months this huge baby boom coming out of the pandemic or not. When we talk about the job losses that have happened in this country, and there's a lot of people who are being hired back, the job losses that happened through no fault of their own, a lot of them are millennials. And a lot of millennials would be in that child rearing situation, ranging from mid-20s all the way up to 40. That would be the generation right now who would be having the children. So I'm not entirely sure with those job losses, with the potential wage loss, if they would feel comfortable adding on additional children into their home. All right, so this is a much lighter note from where we have been talking about. A lot of shelters have been cleared out in this country. You can see tons of articles about the animals who are adopted. It's entertainment for your kids. It gives them away from the screen time, and you have time to actually train this pet. Yes, these are all the pets in my house. I literally have 5 pets. I do not know how we have made it about 20 minutes with no pets jumping on my computer, because generally they all do. But we are very lucky right now. What we typically see and what we have seen in the data is that for unmarried couples, for single females, it's more important for them to be close to a dog park, close to a good community for their pet than it is to be close to those good schools, because children are less likely to be had right now. And so the preference is to accommodate the fur baby over the actual baby. We're seeing this extremely high in rural areas and urban areas. It's really a deciding factor for not only to buy a home, but also the neighborhood choice and what to end up buying. The other thing that we're seeing is a drop in marriage rates in this country. We have seen it drop from 75% of home buyers, first-time home buyers, were married, to just 53%. And really that mirrors what we're seeing in this drop in marriage rates. Back in the 1960s, more than 70% of American adults were married. Today, just half of American adults are married. So really seeing this rise of single females, of single males, seeing that empowerment of being your own individual. What is happening, unfortunately, is that there used to be this very strong buying power of single females. It was more than a quarter of first-time home buyers were single females. Today, it's just 17%. I think a lot of that has to do with housing affordability. It's very expensive to purchase a home. You're seeing those home prices rise. And for a single female to scrape that money together, that would probably be pretty difficult to do on her own. What we're seeing on the flip side there is not necessarily a rise in married couples buying a home, but a rise in roommates buying a home and a rise in unmarried couples buying a home. So I think what we could be seeing is that we might see that 2020, 2021 is the year of the roommate purchasing homes. Because I think that there's a lot of people who are going to couple up in some sort of living situation so that they're not by themselves. If they have to quarantine or social distance by themselves, they actually have a roommate who they're best friends with and they just purchased a home with to have that home ownership. Especially with those low interest rates, not being wedded to city centers, moving farther out, I think we could see a growth in this sector. The other thing that we're seeing is that first-time home buyers have been impacted by tight credit conditions. We saw that at the beginning of the pandemic where there were so many refis. I think what we're seeing now in monthly data is that we actually see first-time home buyers are ticking up a little bit. This is a very, very good thing. We have seen them under the historical norm since the Great Recession. So if this number does start ticking up, that would be very, very good. Some of that could be impacted by first-time home buyers being allowed to move farther out to distant areas, to rural towns, as opposed to having to be wedded to these center centers. But also this lower interest rate can really mean more of a purchase than could be had for previous buyers. So really opening up their ability to purchase a home and the type of home that they can purchase, the price of that home. That being said, the credit box is tight. Some lenders really did up what they want for credit score requirements or down payment requirements. So that could be a challenge right now. That being said, there are some, I would say, good signs for first-time home buyers right now. One of them is that student loan debt automatically went into forbearance and it automatically went to 0% interest in one of the first stimulus packages. This is fantastic news. So there's a lot of people who could take advantage of paying down the principal of their student loan debt during this time period, especially if they move back in with mom and dad and we're part of that 52%. They really could get a hold of some of their debt, put them in a much better situation if they are gainfully employed. That being said, if they automatically took advantage of that automatic forbearance program, that could be a good sign for them too. They could pay down their debt, or if they are in a situation that they did have their wages cut, had lost their job, this is one less bill for them to take care of. But I think that this could be a way, and we've already seen through Federal Reserve data that the numbers for student loan debt were very, very encouraging in the last few months as people really did try and tackle some of their student loan debt. If we look at the past data on this, I think it's really, really interesting because we've seen that 47%, nearly half of student loan debt holders before this, were in a negative amortization loan. They own more on the principal of their debt, even while making on-time payments. So seeing the 0% interest rate is very, very good, gives a very solid leg up for many of these student loan debt holders. All right. I'm going to transition here quite a bit. I want to show you some more consumer data on what we're seeing on agent use. I think it's very fascinating. It very much underscores the business right now, especially during the pandemic. So what we are seeing is that when we look at annual figures, people have strong use of agents. They want agent representation, even if they're buying a new build home, which is rare right now with new builds so low. What we are seeing is that people want an agent, help them navigate that transaction, really help them negotiate, be their local agent who is an expert on their local area, especially with people are moving farther out, looking at different areas. They don't know the area as well as they did. We also know that tenure is at all-time highs before selling. It was 10 years. So truly, even a repeat buyer who has done this before is very much a first-time home buyer because the transaction 10 years ago is very different today than it was in the past. The other thing that we're seeing is that when we look at older data, so last year's data, what we see is that 89% of sellers do want agent representation on their side. They do not want FSBO. They do not want to go for sale by owner. Those are at all-time lows. They want someone to help them price their home competitively, actually find a qualified buyer for their home, and be able to bring that buyer in and also work through all that paperwork and figure out how to fix up their home to sell, something that's incredibly important right now when we think of how much HGTV that people are binge watching, how they are falling in love on Instagram, on how a home should be designed. The expectations of buyers is very high. People expect homes to be designed like TV shows. They expect them to look like TV shows when they walk into them. And we know with that all-time high in tenure that these homes do not look like TV shows. So sellers actually get that. And something that has really creeped up in their preference for their seller's agent today is to have someone show them how to make my home look ready to sell, how to make it look like a polished product that buyers will be attracted to. All right, so looking at very recent data, what we're seeing here is that during the pandemic, there is a change in preference in what buyers and sellers want from their agent. What is really important to them is that face-to-face interaction, but you can't necessarily have it face-to-face. So really seeing this preference of Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, all of these tech tools that we've all been using, buyers and sellers are adopting them in their practice too. So I'll give you just kind of a behind the scenes here. We also did focus groups with buyers and sellers. This is not in the data. I don't have it in slides, but I will say that in hearing those focus groups, the report's not even done. But in hearing those focus groups from consumers, one of the big takeaways that I had is that there's a lot of angst, more angst than you would normally see from consumers right now. A lot of it is just feeling very concerned about having this transaction happen during COVID. A lot of it is the concern of having to hold on to a second property, pay 2 mortgages. So those are the normal concerns that I think buyers and sellers do go through during that transaction, finding the right home, having a bid that's accepted. there's also a lot of concern about those healthcare concerns. And I showed you on one of those first charts that more than half of buyers are saying there's urgency here because I want to sell and purchase a new home because of my healthcare concerns. So when we look at that data, what we're seeing and what we heard from buyers and sellers is that they're concerned about going into homes, making sure they're clean, making sure that all of the precautions that agents are saying that they're taking are being taken. And so I think just reassuring them through that transaction, I really would encourage that yes, we're wearing masks. Yes, this home is being cleaned before you're seeing that home, or after the buyers leave, the seller is being left with a clean home. Those are the types of encouragements that we really heard in the focus group was so important to make people feel just a little more at ease right now in this huge time of uncertainty. All right, so really, really good data that we're getting back from consumers is that the percent of buyers and sellers who are saying that they're relying more on a real estate professional when searching for a home, and this is nearly half, are actually saying a real estate professional is more important now than even before. I think this is incredibly encouraging data for the industry, and really, really strong data that really does show all of the efforts that have been taken to show buyers and sellers that yes, we're going to take the precautions, we're going to find the right home for you, and we're going to do it in the time frame that you really need, which seems to be very urgent. All right, I'm transitioning here quite a bit, but I want to underscore that September is Realtor Safety Month. There's a lot of things that are making us feel unsafe right now, but I just want to say, do your best. Tell people where you are. Use the tech tools that you can to stay safe right now, because we don't want anyone to really be at risk for your personal safety. Of course, you know this through working in the real estate industry, but things like open houses during a showing by yourself, or just meeting a client in a secluded area can be very, very scary. So do bring someone with you, let people know where you are, and do stay as safe as you can be. Also, the NAR website does have a lot of tech tools, videos that you can download, and suggested courses that you can take as well. So please do keep yourself safe while at work. All right, so what's next? I am running out of time, but I am at my last content slide here. There is some very interesting changes that I think could be around the corner. One of them I'm going to throw out, and we don't have any data on any of these things yet because it is too new. But I think we could see a very large transition of people who are used to living in tiny apartments in the city center who just need personal air outside, who may be looking at tiny homes. We don't have data on any of these things yet, but I think they could be changes that we could see. The idea of purchasing this vacation home is so strong right now. A quarter of people are saying that. So if you have good broadband access, what's to say that doesn't become your primary home in the future? We could see that transition. And the other thing that we suspect that we're going to start seeing on the data is that people are going to start looking at retirement properties at a much earlier age than they would have before, because you can spend months there right now if you are not required to go into an office setting. And if you're not required to go into your physical office, then perhaps you could spend weeks there in the future, go to your physical office just once a month or so, and not have to worry about it. If these types of things happen, that's truly going to reinvent rural areas, these traditional recreation areas that have only been used for seasonal times. We could see a big change in that. And the demand for commercial types of amenities that are available in those areas that have not traditionally been available. Perhaps you always had the traditional coffee shop, but now the Starbucks is going to be more important to these areas. I don't know, but I think that's a huge question mark of what's going to happen. And then a huge question mark here, as we know that more than half of students are virtually learning. How does school come into play? Do you have to be wedded to that particular school district if you're virtual learning? Maybe that vacation home, that early retirement purchase for some families, maybe that is where you actually go post-September, because it doesn't necessarily matter. I think that's a huge question mark for a lot of people right now. And then again, I think that there's going to be a drop in tenure. There has to be. What we've seen traditionally in the data is that people moved every 6 to 7 years. After the Great Recession, that peaked. It's at 10 years right now. People stayed in their homes for a longer period of time. There's low interest rates. They refinanced them. They were underwater. Lots of reasons behind this. The big thing too is that people traditionally move because there's a change in their life. They have a kid, they get married, they get divorced, but with the drop in birth rates, the drop in marriage rates, we saw those things plummet. People didn't move because of that anymore. But right now we are all having this change in our life. And to bring it all together, I think we're all in an Instapot situation. And really, this could be this change that gets people moving. All right, so that's the end of it. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope you have questions too. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. So yeah, it looks like the chat box is a little shy right now, but so we'd want to take the time and ask once again, if anybody does have any questions in there, we would love to get them to the lady who has all the answers. If you want an answer on anything, this is the person for you. So we'll keep an eye out there. I would say, obviously, like you were just touching on interest rates being so historically low, do you see, buyer sensitivity when it comes to interest rates being an issue as they begin to rise? I know the Fed has stated that they won't do that for about 2 or 3 years, but how do you see that relationship going?
Yeah, so interest rates are expected to stay low, I think, for the next at least 18 months is what I'm hearing. So I think that there is going to be this pent up demand where people have tried to find a home, have not been able to find a home, really taking advantage of those low interest rates.
Great. And then it looks like a couple just came in. We've actually got one from our very own Elizabeth Mendenhall, who's asking, will we start to see data on Asian wealth after the No Other campaign?
Yes, so that's a really good point that Elizabeth made, that yes, there was a No Other campaign, and NAR was invited to actually the celebrations of the No Other campaign. Yes, I think that the new Federal Reserve data will actually include the Asian data. That being said, I don't know if they'll be able to break out historically or if they've just lumped everyone in together. We'll have to dig into the methodology on that, because at this point, unfortunately, we don't see the data yet. But it would be very good to see that moving forward. They unfortunately release data every few years as opposed to every year on that data point.
Okay, great. And next up, it looks like from Jim Meyer, we have what city size do you think will be most desirable going forward? Will someone from New York City, for say, come to a place like Columbia?
Yeah, I actually think they will. So what we're seeing is that there's a very strong desire to move out of these big city centers. Yes, there's a lot of people who are moving to New Jersey, Connecticut, rural Pennsylvania. But also, if you moved from New York City and you have family in Columbia, I think that there is a very strong desire to be where your family is right now. We even saw that pre-COVID. It's the number one reason why people were selling is actually to be close to friends and family. So I think that the idea that if you have family in that area, if it's affordable, you can work remotely, the schools are good even remotely, then this is a place where you would feel comfortable and that you could actually social distance and be okay and feel good with that. So I think that, yes, there is a great migration out of places like New York City to more affordable areas. Yes.
All right, next question. And here's your crystal ball question. Will 2021 be as crazy as this fall?
I think I hope so for you guys. We are seeing that there is this strong demand, and it's a pent up demand. The number of homes that are on the market is not going to meet the demand of buyers. So I think you will continue to see this very strong buying activity, especially with the almost guarantee that interest rates will stay this low as well. You should continue to see the strong activity. So yes, I'm sorry you said the word crazy, but yes, I think it's going to be strong.
That sounds good. All right, next up we have, you touched on multi-generational home purchasing. Was it 1 in 6 millennials or 1 in 6 Gen Xers that will be purchasing multi-generational homes?
Yeah, so last year's data showed that 1 in 6 younger boomers, so the younger boomer side who would be, I don't know the cutoff year for that, but all the way up to 1964. And then also Gen Xers. So the generation, the small one that's wedged in between the boomers and the millennials, 1 in 6 Gen Xers were purchasing a multi-generational home. That being said, millennials go all the way up to the age of 40 now, and we are actually seeing a share of older millennials who are purchasing multi-generational homes. So taking care of aging parents, and very likely moving forward going to have kids who are over the age of 18 in their home as well if they don't already. So we are actually seeing that from millennials. We always think of them as the youngest generation, but really Gen Zers are the youngest at this point.
Got a new crop of young guns coming into the market. So, and then a final question here we have, how important is 2020 census data to your research?
Please do the census, please. It's incredibly important. So we have consumer data, we have member data, but the big bread and butter that we do rely on too is we build tons of Tableau interactive data sets with census data. It's incredibly important to our work for forecasting. It's incredibly important when we look at the demographics. So yes, please do the census. Please fill out the form. It's very important.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up all the questions we have. Any final points before we move on, Jessica? And thank you again so much.
No, I just really appreciate being here. And I know that the market is crazy right now. There's a lot of demand. That's a good thing. It really speaks to how well you guys have really embraced the change and really rolled with it and said, I'm going to up my game. I'm going to go virtual. I'm going to use these virtual tech tools, but I'm going to keep everyone safe when we're in person too. So really props to you guys for keeping the real estate market safe and keeping it moving. So truly, thank you guys for having me.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. So once again, thank you to Jessica. I mean, amazing information. The amount of data and how she can formulate that into just such a easy to listen to presentation is so great. We're so happy that we were able to get her. Just wanted to mention, then I saw one of these questions in the chat. We are recording today's meeting, so we can share it with the membership who weren't able to attend, or some of the, we'll try and get the bugs out of it and have it more streamlined. But so you will have Jessica's presentation that you can look back through, slides and all that, and the people who were not able to attend today as well will be able to get that. So we'll be sending that out soon. Also, we're going to be posting the videos that we missed today. We'll be posting those up on our Facebook page, CBOR's Facebook page, and getting those out to everybody as well. And like I said, be on the lookout for those because you will definitely want to see them. So next up, we've got our 2020 Leadership Academy graduation. This is obviously something we love to do in person, but we get to do it this way this year. So Columbia Leadership Academy was created in 2017 as a way for participants to get a glimpse into some of the organizations that are important to CBOR and our community. Whether you're a new agent or a seasoned vet, this program has something for everyone. This year's class will always be one to remember. Even through a pandemic, they made the best out of this year. And we're lucky to have a class of true leaders that help enhance this association. So we will now recognize our recent graduates. I just want to say one more time, thank you to this class for taking time to learn valuable leadership skills to benefit both our community and association. So congratulations to our 2020 CBOR Leadership Academy graduates, which you'll see on your screen. Cassie Carnes, Remax Boone Realty, Adam Curtis, Iron Gate Real Estate, Ori Hemme, Copper Creek Realty, Courtney McKnight, Remax Boone Realty, Ford Mendenhall, Remax Boone Realty, and Leslie Wynn, House of Brokers Realty. This year's class has already been presented with their certificates, and we're looking forward to seeing what they do in the future. I also wanted to give a big thank you to the CBOR staff and a special shout out to Lissa for all the work you do to put into this program. The 2021 CBOR Leadership Academy applications will be released later this year, and I encourage those who are interested in applying to be on the lookout for them. We'll make sure that we get them to you. So, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. That takes us to our final piece of business today, which I'm sure you all are ready for, which is our election results. You will see this year's winners on your screen, and I will announce them as such. I want to just congratulate everybody who won, of course, but everybody who even took the time to just apply and is willing to volunteer. These leadership roles are so vital in continuing our association and progressing forward. I know it's a time commitment, but you'll never get more gratification, and you can really help steer this association in the direction that we need to be going. So with that, we will go to the winner of the 2021 Board of Directors election. And that winner is Jennifer Dick of Remax Boone Realty. Congratulations, Jennifer. The winner of the 2021 MLS committee member election is Billy Dexheimer, Iron Gate Real Estate. And our final spot, the winner of the 2021 state director election is Sean Moore, Remax Boone Realty. Congratulations to all the winners, and once again, keep applying for those spots. If you didn't win today, we need all the volunteers we can get, and all the great leaders. Just keep them coming. We love to see it. So with that, we conclude our 2020 annual meeting. I want to thank you again, everybody in attendance, for rolling with the punches today. This has been quite the experience, but I'm so happy we were able to make it work. Everybody continue to stay safe, sell real estate, be an advocate for your community, and we will once again get those recordings out to you later so you can have this full presentation. So once again, thank you all. I really appreciate it. It's been such an amazing year, and we'll just keep moving forward. So thank you again, and you all have a great day.